and that's going to have impacts on both the rich and the poor.
Seth es el autor del premiado y aclamado libro bestseller del New York Times, Hágase el Agua, la solución de Israel para un mundo hambriento de agua, que ahora está impreso en más de 20 ediciones.
Hello, or hola. I'm Seth Seigel, the author of Let There Be Water, Israel's Solution for a Water-Starved World. And I'm very sorry that I'm not with you live and in person for this wonderful and important conference. But business and family obligations back north of the border in the United States have kept me from attending. But when the conference organizers asked me if I would consider sending my greetings and some information via a video, my reaction was immediately, well, of course, yes. So let's talk a little bit about water and why this is important. When I began doing my research on water and water scarcity in particular some years ago, water scarcity was hardly a topic of key consideration or conversation, even in government offices, except in the most specialized places. Now, of course, today around the world, we understand the degree to which water scarcity has the potentiality of creating great upheaval around the world. If you are in a place that has scarce water resources or water that's dwindling and a meaningfully large population, what you're going to find is that the population is going to start wanting to be restless, going to want to move, be unhappy. It's going to create social unrest. It's going to lead to higher food prices, which is going to lead to more social unrest. And this will destabilize governments here, there, and everywhere, not just in Mexico, but all over the world. But even if you're in a water-rich place, even if you're in a place that historically has lots of water, you're still at risk from water scarcity. That higher food prices are going to affect you because the places where the food will be grown is going to be more scarce, the water cost will be higher, and that will create instability as well. Plus, as governments may be unable to affect what they need to affect with their populations, where the water is running out and where food was historically being grown, you're going to see a situation where not more than a handful, but many countries are going to find themselves in a national security crisis, and that's going to have impacts on both the rich and the poor countries around the world. And then, of course, there's the possibility of refugee flows around the world. And this is scary stuff, because if only a few 100,000 refugees traveling from one place to another can be so destabilizing, as we have seen both in Europe with the Syrian civil war refugees, and in more recent days at the U.S. border with refugees coming from Latin and South America via Mexico. We understand how destabilizing this can be from a political context, and how it can lead to all kinds of political parties and political outcomes that none of us would like to see in more stable times. So because of all of this, it's important for us to think about what we're going to do about our water future, and therefore I am glad to share with you, after that very gloomy, scary opening, that there's actually lots of good news. And the good news comes from a variety of places, but nowhere more so than in Israel itself. And why is that? Well, about 100 years ago, even before the State of Israel was founded, about 100 years ago, the then Zionist leadership, again, there was no State of Israel yet, the Zionist leadership, living under the Palestinian, living in the Palestinian territory of the geographic Palestinian territory, didn't have the that it has today, and the British Mandate, those same people found themselves in a situation where they understood that unless they could create a secure water future for themselves and that there would be nothing, no possibility of living out the dream of the who became the founders of Israel, the dream of having Jews from all over the world join them in the building up of the land of Israel and the geographic territory of Palestine. And so for a number of years, the leaders of the Zionist leaders, as the case may be, found themselves asking question after question of what can we do to secure our future? Now, in most countries around the world, water is not number one priority for national leaders. In most countries around the world, actually, deep in the bureaucracy, if hardly it's thought about at all. But in the pre-state Israel, and then in the state of Israel, and certainly today in Israel, water is a top drawer issue that all of the leadership thought about and worried about, and no less so for immigrant absorption or healthcare or any of the other key issues like education that preoccupy ordinarily. And these Zionist leaders, starting in the 1920s, about 100 years ago, began saying, what do we need to do? Well, let me promise you, I'm not going to sit here and recite 100 years. Let me bring you to the punchline. Let me bring you to the conclusion. Is that what they realized was that with a number of different methods, you could have a secure water future for a vast, vast population. For millions and millions and millions of more people who live there today, even with climate change, with higher temperatures, with much more agricultural activity, you can have a happy and secure water future. Okay, so let's talk about what Israel does today and what can be done by every country everywhere in the world. First of all, what Israel has done, and this is very important, Israel has created a water revering culture. Israel made a decision early on that they would treat water as a topic to be educated about in schools, starting in the lowest grades of kindergarten and nursery programs. Children are taught that water is precious. Children are taught to brush their teeth efficiently. Children are taught to shower or bathe efficiently. Children are taught to be thoughtful about how they run the tap in their home. Now, of course, whether you brush your teeth for an extra 10 or 15 seconds or with the water on or water off is not national water profile, but it becomes integrated into your thinking that it's on you personally, not just on the head of your country. It's on you personally to do save water. And that water revering culture that began around the 1920s, the respect for water, the desire to be water self-sufficient, that became the ethos of Israel. Now, with that idea and the importance of water, what comes with that is people are prepared to sacrifice because they see it as part of their national, from paying taxes or serving in the military or the other things that good citizens. And so it is a very common thing for Israelis of all ages to under their personal responsibility to be saving water, to be thoughtful about water. That leads to several consequences. First, smart governance. In most of the world, water is a political. In Israel, they've deliberately decided to make it an apolitical area, politicians away, and to keep it out of politics. And the way they do that is they have a democratic, professional water authority, which has missions. It's not filled with political appointees. There's only one political appointee at the very top, and that is somebody who's a water expert. And that person then runs the water authority without interference from the government. It's filled with experts, PhDs, and other scholars and experts of all kinds in every aspect of the water story. And it is their job in Israel, it is their job to bring the largest amount of water to the largest number of people at the most reasonable price possible, and to make sure that that water is clean, safe, healthy, and equally distributed. And in so doing that, what they have is an apolitical, technocratic approach to governance, and that has been a great, important part of the success. In addition to great governance, they also use market forces in Israel. In most of the world, unfortunately, I would say, water is either free or it is priced so far below actual cost of acquisition, cleaning, transportation, and so forth, almost like free, but that in any event, there's a subsidy of a kind around that water. And when you have subsidized water or subsidized anything, you get signals, and people are not allowed to create alternatives to water. Now, some people say there are no alternatives to water, but that's simply not true. Less water, you can be more mindful about your water, you can live a different lifestyle. If you have a swimming pool in your backyard, you use a great deal of water, but you can choose to cover your pool when you're not using it, so you'll have less evaporation. If you are paying for your water in your home at full price, you can shut off that tap faster when you're brushing your teeth, or keep it closed when you aren't rinsing your toothbrush. You have all kinds of choices, and if you are a farmer or an industry, you can make other kinds of choices, such as what are the technological alternatives that you can make use of that allow you to make good use of water, efficient use of water. And if technology costs $1, a peso, whatever the amount is, and water is free, well then, no, make use of that technology. But if water costs 2x and the technology costs 1x, the block of people are going to say, I want to substitute out as much of the water as I can with the new technology if I can get the same outcome at a lower price. And that's exactly the value of the extraordinary range of technological innovations in water, and by the way, and in other areas too, that have come out of Israel. Whether it's desalination, which of course is now a worldwide phenomenon, but very much an Israeli invention. Whether it's the use of treated wastewater to reuse. In the case of Israel, they don't use it for drinking water, they use it for agriculture. But in Israel, about 85% of the nation's sewage is treated to an ultra-high pure level where you actually could drink it if you had to drink it, but they don't. And they spend decades and billions of dollars building a parallel national water infrastructure that allows them to transport the water from where the sewage is treated to farms here, there, and everywhere around the country. And that's been great because that way agriculture doesn't have to put pressure on the water supplies as it does in every other country or nearly every other country in the world. And Israel also is very smart about technology in agriculture. I'm involved with a company called NDRIP, N like new, hyphen, drip. And NDRIP found a way to take flood irrigation, which is the dominant form of irrigation all over the world, about 85% of the world, 600 million acres around the world. And remarkably, using only the force of gravity, transforming that field, that flood irrigated field, into a drip irrigated field with any kind of water, needing no filtration, needing no expensive infrastructure, needing no expensive installation, and able to create outcomes where you save half or more of the water, reduce fertilizer by half or more, increase yields by up to 30%, and reduce greenhouse gases, particularly methane, by as much as 5%. So that's something that was started and invented with the thought of saving water, but there are positive outcomes. Israel also is brilliant at coming up with Israeli water technologies, and it's a very wonderful story to tell. Again, I'm sorry I couldn't be with you live and in person. If any of you would like to reach out to me via my website, you can reach me at...
El video de Seth. Y por supuesto, agradecer a Francisco de Jesús por haber confiado en nosotros como país invitado. Asimismo, a su increíble equipo de trabajo de la Comisión Estatal del Agua en Guanajuato. Hoy tengo el privilegio y la emoción de dirigirme hacia ustedes para hablar sobre los puntos claves sobre el libro de Seth, Let There Be Water. Personalmente, fue un libro extraordinario y profundamente inspirador que cambió mi perspectiva sobre uno de los recursos más importantes de nuestro planeta, el agua. Hace aproximadamente un año, cuando me uní a la Embajada de Israel, fue el primer libro que me otorgaron como tarea leer y cambió aparentemente toda mi vida y mi postura respecto a este valioso recurso. A lo largo de sus páginas cautivantes, Seigel nos sumerge en el apasionante mundo de la gestión del agua en Israel, un país que ha logrado convertirse en un apasionante mundo y líder en este ámbito. A pesar de encontrarse, fue un país con una geografía desfavorable y escasos recursos hídricos, que enfrentó desde su fundación en 1948 enormes desafíos en términos de suministro de agua para su crecimiento y desarrollo. Sin embargo, fue un ejemplo de resiliencia. En lugar de dejarse desanimar por estas circunstancias adversas, decidió enfrentar la escasez hídrica con una mentalidad audaz, una cultura determinante e inquebrantable. En el libro Let There Be Water, Seigel nos revela el enfoque innovador y transformador que se ha adoptado en relación al agua, a través de tecnología avanzada, políticas inteligentes y una cultura de conservación y cuidado. El país ha logrado superar los desafíos y garantizar un suministro de agua seguro y sostenible para su población. Una de las piedras angulares del éxito en Israel en la gestión del agua es su destacado enfoque en la desalinización del agua del mar. Aprovechando tecnologías de punta, Israel ha construido plantas desalinizadoras a gran escala que convierten el agua del mar en agua potable. Esta innovadora técnica ha permitido al país asegurar un suministro confiable de agua y seguro, incluso en épocas de sequía prolongada. Sin embargo, la gestión en agua en Israel no únicamente va más allá de la desalinización. El país también ha implementado sistemas avanzados de recolección y reutilización de aguas residuales. A través de procesos de tratamiento innovadores, Israel purifica y reutiliza las aguas residuales para el riego agrícola, reduciendo así la demanda de agua dulce y promoviendo la conservación. Desde una edad temprana, los ciudadanos aprenden la importancia de utilizar el agua de manera responsable, implementando tecnologías de riego eficientes como sistemas de riego por goteo, que ya lo hemos visto mucho en los diversos speeches que han dado aquí, entre otras. También ha habido medidores inteligentes, sistemas de presión, que han contribuido significativamente a la reducción del consumo de agua y a la maximización de su uso. El impacto de la gestión del agua en Israel va más allá también de sus fronteras. Seigel explora cómo la política del agua ha jugado un papel crucial en las relaciones internacionales de Israel. A través de la cooperación y el intercambio de conocimientos, Israel ha establecido la colaboración y estabilidad en una región caracterizada por conflictos. Como ustedes sabrán, hace poco tiempo ha habido diversos conflictos políticos que han dado lugar a violencia y otros ataques. Sin embargo, como menciona Seth, esto no es una excusa para dejar de proveer un suministro de agua potable a los vecinos. Más allá de ser un relato sobre la gestión del agua en Israel, este libro nos invita a reflexionar sobre la importancia global de este recurso vital. En un mundo donde la escasez de agua es una realidad cada vez más acuciante, las lecciones aprendidas de Israel son invaluables. Nos enseñan la importancia de adoptar una mentalidad de conservación, de invertir en tecnología innovadora y, más que nada, de promover políticas inteligentes para así lograr garantizar un futuro sostenible en términos de agua para todos. Como conclusión, les insto a que consideremos el mensaje poderoso del libro Let There Be Water, más allá del agua en español. Cada uno de nosotros tiene un papel fundamental que desempeñar en la gestión responsable del agua, ya sea como empresarios, como operadores o como ciudadanos. A través de pequeñas acciones en nuestra vida diaria, como cerrar el grifo mientras nos cepillamos los dientes, o tal vez en acciones más grandes, como abogar por políticas y prácticas sostenibles, todos podemos contribuir a la conservación de este recurso vital. En este camino podemos mirar a Israel como un modelo a seguir, un país que se ha convertido en la adversidad en oportunidad y que nos recuerda que, a pesar de los desafíos, siempre hay esperanza y soluciones disponibles. Sigamos su ejemplo y trabajemos juntos para garantizar que haya agua dulce para todos, ahora y en las generaciones venideras. Muchas gracias.
Agradecemos a Ana Victoria Chávez por su reflexión del libro. Y bueno, a continuación tomaremos un break de